for the most part, I believe, for the most part, you can trust respected medical authorities. I believe I'm one of them, so I think you can trust me. But I would stick with respected medical authorities who have a track record of telling the truth, who have a track record of giving information and policy and recommendations based on scientific evidence and good data. So if I were to give advice to you and your family and your friends of your family, I would say that's the safest bet to do, to listen to the recommendations from that category of people. But it's entirely understandable how the public can get mixed messages and then get a bit confused about what they should do.
Let me ask one quick follow-up before.
So basically, Dr. Fauci's like, look, I'm the man. Listen to me. I know what's up. That's how we roll. Don't listen to the other. Listen to the Fauci. The Fauci's here for you. The Fauci's got you covered.
Yep. That's right. The Fauci's got to be about Bernie Sanders' age. They're both from Brooklyn here in New York. They must have lived pretty close to it. I just was thinking about this the other day. You think of how many people in the public eye had to be crossing paths at some point, especially if they've been in the public eye for as many decades as some of the people we see currently out there are. But, those are two of my favorite. I just think of it, two of my favorite Brooklyn characters, Fauci and Bernie Sanders. And Fauci went to my high school. So he went to a Jesuit school here in New York, my school. I'm sure they love him. I'm sure they don't celebrate notable alumni Buck Sexton. I doubt that. The Jesuits are kind of commies. But anyway, some of them are great. Now we have Fauci out there telling you the mitigation, a mask. You got to wear the mask. Producer Mark, are you wearing a mask? The Fauci wants to know.
Rarely, but I never leave the house.
What about indoors? What about when Mrs. Mark is making you some, some fettuccine? Are you wearing a mask?
In my own apartment?
Yeah.
No.
What about the mitigation?
I think I'll be fine. Thank you, Dr. Fauci.
All right. Well, I'm not sure about that yet. We'll see.
The science is not settled about mask wearing indoors alone because you could breathe. What if you breathe in air that you breathed out and the virus came in through a window? Let's say the virus, it's like a heat-seeking missile. It comes from anywhere.
All right. So Fauci is telling you listen to him because he's a guy who's an expert, and he's so right. I will tell you that if you look back at his record, he has been working in public health for a very long time. He was also very wrong about which communities and the degree of risk different communities in this country had from the HIV virus. Now, we didn't know a lot about the virus in the early days. I understand that, but he had that very wrong. And look, science is supposed to be a process of constantly testing and retesting assumptions based on data, and we'll have to see. But let's see what we have now from Dr. Fauci here. We have not Fauci, but Peter Navarro, the trade representative for the Trump administration, the trade expert for the Trump administration, I should say. He put out a USA Today column where he wrote the following. It's short, by the way. I could read this whole thing to you because this is not a long one at all. He writes, the title says a lot. Anthony Fauci has been wrong about everything I have interacted with him on. Peter Navarro. When you ask me whether I listen to his advice, my answer is only with skepticism and caution. And he writes the following. Dr. Anthony Fauci has a good bedside manner with the public, but he has been wrong about everything I have interacted with him on. In late January, when I was making the case on behalf of the president to take down the flights from China, Fauci fought against the president's courageous decision, which might well have saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. When I warned in late January in a memo of a possibly deadly pandemic, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases was telling the news media not to worry. When I was working feverishly on behalf of the president in February to help engineer the fastest industrial mobilization of the healthcare sector in our history, Fauci was still telling the public the China virus was low risk. When we were building new mask capacity in record time, Fauci was flip-flopping on the use of masks. And when Fauci was telling the White House coronavirus task force that there was only anecdotal evidence in support of hydroxychloroquine to fight the virus, I confronted him with scientific studies providing evidence of safety and efficacy. A recent Detroit hospital study showed a 50% reduction in the mortality rate when the medicine is used in early treatment. Now Fauci says a falling mortality rate doesn't matter when it is the single most important statistic to help guide the pace of our economic reopening. The lower the mortality rate, the faster and more we can reopen. So when you ask me whether I listen to Dr. Fauci's advice, my answer is only with skepticism and caution. Oh boy. Not allowed to say that. Not allowed. No.
Saint Fauci, you don't criticize, you don't ask questions, you do what he says. You do the mitigation. That's what you do.
Yep. Trust medical authorities like me. At least, look, Navarro is not a medical authority, but this is, he's not saying he is. He's not saying he is a medical authority. He's just saying that he's been told things many times that aren't true by the guy who is the authority. Shouldn't you be able to pay attention to that? Shouldn't that matter? You would think so. You would think that would be the case. But sure enough, no, we have more hysteria all over the place. More hysteria, more insanity. And for example, you have the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, who is demanding that you wear masks even when you're not near anybody. Play 14 here.
You know, when I talk to young people that I see out that don't have masks, they say to me, well, Mayor, I wear it in the grocery store. I wear it in, other kinds of stores. But we really need them to be wearing face coverings everywhere, anytime they walk outside of their home. And they really need to religiously practice social distancing.
Outside your home, got to wear a mask all the time. Mask wearing has been pretty much a religion in California, and yet they've had a huge spike in cases in California. There is certainly an argument. We don't know because it's hard to get all the data. And in fact, some of the data we see is wrong. Oh, wait, here's something I meant to mention to you all before. And it's that there has been at least a few cases. Here we go. Of hospitals in Florida. This is from the Fox affiliate in Orlando. Florida Department of Health says some labs have not reported negative COVID results. And the Florida Department of Health has said laboratories not been. Countless labs have reported a 100% positivity rate, which means every single person tested was positive. Other labs had very high positivity rates. Fox 35 News found that testing sites like one local CentraCare reported that 83 people tested and all tested positive. Another one, NCF Diagnostics, reported 88% were positive. How could that be? When they looked into it, Orlando Health had a 98% positivity rate. And then when they finally contacted the hospital, guess what they found out? The positivity rate wasn't 98%, as was in the initial report put out to the public. The positivity rate for COVID-19 was 9.4%. People who tell you that anyone who questions some of the numbers and the accuracy of the numbers is being a conspiracy theorist or can't read or don't read. Clearly, with all the data coming in, all the uncertainties about is this a COVID patient or is this somebody who came in that tested negative who might be positive later? There's so many different ways that the data has to be assessed and sifted through. And look, the top priority of the hospitals and any medical center is just going to be making sure that patients get the best care. But that's not what anybody talks about. No. We're just looking at the numbers every day, and we're all supposed to be terrified. We're all supposed to be constantly in fear of the future. And look, it's just no way to live. I mean, that's all along I've been trying to take the position here that no matter what, okay, here we go. July 14th, updated. All right, I don't have the 15th number in front of me. That's July 14th. 351 new deaths, 58,858 new cases. 351 new deaths. That's down from at least 2,000 a day at the peak. It's a fraction. And yet we have more cases we've ever had before. So what's really going on here? There are a lot of moving pieces, a lot of things going on. But you don't shut down the country because of a virus that has already spread all across the nation, that is in every major city, that has been in every large community. You don't shut down the country because of a virus like this that you cannot stop. And that's just, that should be the end of it at some point, right? People have to realize this. But look, the same people who are telling us that the marches, the BLM marches that were going on were justified, even if they were risking public health because they were so important for public health, those same people are now saying that schools can't be open, even though all the evidence, all the science, all of that shows quite clearly that it's safe for kids to be in school. Other countries have done it, and it's fine. And when you hear Democrats on TV trying to, oh, but what about this? What about that? No. I thought this was about the science, not about the what about. But as we all know, what's it really about? Joe Biden winning the election. No surprise there. I can't believe we're being evicted from our home. That's, well, sorry. One more. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. I can't believe we're being evicted from our home that we didn't sell. That's what Deborah said when she learned she was the victim of home title fraud. Look, this is a crime that can actually cost you your home. Title fraud is not covered by insurance or identity theft services. The only trusted folks to protect you are Home Title Lock. Your home's legal title is online where cyber thieves find it and forge your signature saying you sold your home to them. In Deborah's case, she didn't know she was a victim until the eviction notice arrived. Home Title Lock puts a virtual barrier around your home's title. If tampering is detected, they instantly mobilize to stop it. So go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're a victim and don't know it. Use code BUCK for 30 free days of protection. That's code BUCK at HometitleLock.com. Again, HometitleLock.com. Speaking of Joe Biden, here's what that third-tier intellect and second-tier politician has to say about Republican policies and how they're holding us back. Play clip 11.
This is all that Donald Trump and the Republicans offer. Backward-looking policies that will harm the environment, make communities less healthy, hold back economic promise, while other countries race ahead. It's a mindset that doesn't have any faith in the capacity of the American people to compete, to innovate, and to win. It's never been a good bet to bet against the American people. And when you do, it will exact the deadly cost.
What does he even think he's saying? I mean, that's what I end up having to ask a lot about Biden. What? It's like politician Mad Libs. Yeah, they look back instead of looking into the future and never bet against a bird in the hand is worth, 2 bumblebees on a tree, and I'm tired. I mean, it's really, that's where we are with this guy. What is he talking about? What is he saying? What are the policies that Republicans are looking back? Oh, what? Usage of fossil fuels? Oh, no, of course, that's probably one of them. These complete maniacs. Just when we're already still in the grip as a nation of the COVID-19 panic and hysteria, Biden's out there pulling the old, we've only got 9 years or we're all going to die from climate change. Play 10.
We're going to get back into the Paris Agreement, back into the business of leading the world. We're going to lock in progress that no future president can roll back or undercut to take us backward again. Science requires a timetable for measuring progress on climate that isn't 3 decades or even 2. Science tells us we have 9 years before the damage is irreversible. So my timetable results is in my first 4 years as president. The jobs we'll create, the investments we'll make, and the irreversible steps we'll take to mitigate and adapt to the climate change and put our nation on the road to net zero emissions no later than 2050.
No later than 2050, I think he said. Joe Biden's not going to last that long. Look, Joe Biden's not going to be in charge in 2050. I think that's safe to say. I mean, I wish the man good health and all, but I think that's pretty. I mean, it's not. Wait, is it? No, it's pretty much completely. It's pretty much completely impossible. Obviously, not that he'd be president, but even that Joe Biden would be worried about the world in 2050. This is blather. We have real problems, things that are affecting us all today, real challenges and concerns, including China, which we'll be talking about shortly. And Joe Biden's focused on getting us to net zero emissions in 30 years. Yeah, that's right. That's what we need to be hearing about now. This is a religious belief, my friends. This whole, the world is going to end unless we have green jobs. This is a religious belief. This is not reality. Notice that they've gone back from the world will effectively be over. 9 years to save the world is what we've been told in the past by prominent Democrats. Now it's the damage is irreversible. That's not an unimportant shift. What's the damage? Well, whatever the climate is and whatever weather storms and earthquakes and things happen between now and 9 years from now, when guess what? The world's not going to end because of climate change. They'll say, "Oh, but if we had just done more, we'd be in a better place and we wouldn't have, all this stuff." Make sure that the targets that they have, make sure they cannot be evaluated honestly. That's central to the climate change movement. What do they really think? The people that don't believe this, they believe that the libs think they're so much smarter than everybody who doesn't believe this. I think that's the only way to explain it, because otherwise, can't they at least agree that we don't want the world to end too? I don't want the world to end. The liberal belief system is premised on they know how to save the planet, and I just don't care. And I'm not smart enough to figure, Al Gore is smart enough. Al Gore is a moron. But, Al Gore is smart enough to figure this out. Sure he is. Whew. That's right. They want Biden to be the leader of the free world. I've actually been watching, I shouldn't do this to myself, been watching The West Wing because it's on Netflix, and I just wanted something to kind of zone out to. I'd never really watched it before. It's just so funny. It's just such smug, trite 90s liberalism, it's just all about, we just want to save lives by banning these different guns. If we ban them, we'll save lives. Oh man, makes you kind of miss some of the political arguments of the 90s. But that show, if you watch it, you can see part of the evolution of the liberal mindset in this country, because it went from sanctimonious and pleading in the 90s to now, fast forward 20 years, and it is psychotic and authoritarian. So you can actually look at the progression over time, and it all kind of makes sense. It went from, oh, come on, we just want to save the world, man, and we just want everyone to be happy and things be better, so why don't you listen to our dumb ideas, to now it's, you will obey our stupid ideas or we will fire you and deplatform you and ruin you. That has been the progression of American liberalism. And no liberty. No liberty allowed. That's what liberals are into now. Is the Goya boycott backfiring? Trump certainly says it is. He says Goya Foods is doing great. I got to say, I'm going to have to go buy some Goya. This is one of these moments. This is one of these times when you can put your money where your mouth is. kind of literally in a sense, or not really your money, but you know what I mean. So it's not, people misuse the word literally more than any other word, I think. They were saying, I'm like literally the most upset person in the universe right now. I mean, I guess that's not even, I literally just said something that's not literally true. You have that all the time. I hear well-educated adults saying that on a regular basis. I try not to do it. We all have our verbal tics. I have mine. Some of you are aware of them too, and you send them to me, and it's like, guys, I'm trying, okay? At least I don't do the constant that I hear in a lot of other radio shows. Nor do I have a voice that sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks played on high speed. So, where was I? Goya Foods. Goya Foods is under fire because the CEO stood up and said that he thinks Trump is doing good things. And so they tried to come after him. And now we are seeing the results of this, or we are in the process of finding out the results of this. And I certainly hope that everybody will take the position that they want to help Goya Foods at this point in time, if they can. I mean, look, I know money's tight right now for people, but, you know, I'm not saying buy the food and throw it out, obviously. Buy the food and eat it. It's good food. Goya's been a good company for a long time. But this is what we need to see. We need more people who will do what they say they will do by supporting businesses, by supporting those entities that are under fire from the boycott left. I know Ivanka Trump put out a photo of her with a Goya Foods can, and now the libs are all, oh my gosh, it's a Hatch Act violation and corruption and all this stuff. Oh my gosh, she doesn't own stock in Goya Foods. She's allowed to say, if a member of the president's family says that they really like oranges, is that a giveaway to the citrus growers in Florida? I mean, I'm sure libs would say it probably is, actually. Now that I think about it, I'm sure that would be their position. That would be their view of it. So I want people to do what they can to support this company at this point in time, because this is how we could start. People ask me, how do we push back? How do we gain back ground that has been lost against the lunatic libs? One way is for companies to see every time a company gets boycotted for taking a pro-conservative or Republican position, that conservatives across the country make sure that they have remember, the boycott never lasts long. The boycotts are very short-term things. People have short memories. They forget. But there's a culture now, and the libs know, and there's this horrifying Twitter account of morons called the Sleeping Giants, and all they do is try to create the perception. It's a bunch of libs who create the perception of true widespread public outrage at a conservative and goes after that conservative sponsors and tries to get them de-sponsored and then hopefully get them deplatformed. They're doing this. They're doing this against Tucker Carlson. I mean, they've done this against many people. These movements to deplatform, but it always lasts a very short period of time. They're never boycotting for a year because no one even remembers in 2 weeks what the boycott was about. But if executives of a company are all, oh gosh, I saw some mean things about this person on Twitter and we don't want to be associated with them, they pull their funds, and that they can create a snowball effect. They get people shut down. So we need to make sure that is not a successful tactic for the left. And one way to do that is to give them a boost in the stock price. Look, Colin Kaepernick on the other side is an example of the power of politics in consumer markets, because Nike stock went up after Kaepernick came out as a big Nike spokesperson, right? I mean, so I see that decision, and I think that Colin Kaepernick is basically a fraud, but nonetheless, Nike looks at that and says, well, made us money and we feel good about ourselves. So conservatives, we need to start thinking more strategically about this. And I have no shame in telling you, if you care about this show and what I do and what I say, every time you hear one of those live reads where I'm saying, here's a sponsor, drink this coffee, try this supplement, use this service, use these AirPods, whatever it may be, the more of you that are willing, and I know money's tight and I'm not anybody, everyone has to make their own decisions about what they can afford to do and spend and all the rest. But the more that you buy those products, the more we stay on the air and the more secure we are for when the boycott monsters come after us, because they will. They will, inevitably. So just know that. And you ask how you can, and if there's other conservatives you think do really important work, the same goes for them. I mean, clearly not as important as the work we do here, but I'm just saying, same goes for them. So I do hope that there is a surge in buying of Goya, and I will go out and get some Goya beans. I do not cook any Latino food particularly. Producer Mark, are you like Mexican food, right?
Of course, Chipotle is like my favorite food group.
Yeah, I need to learn to make some of that. I'm not as familiar with some of the spices.
You can't make tacos?
Like people talk about sofrito, and I'm always like, what? It's like a spice mixture. I don't know much about. No, I've never made. I just realized this as I'm here. And not only have I never bought Goya products before, I've never made Latin inspired or Latin inspired food.
You know how easy it is to make tacos?
Yeah, I mean, look. I'm not saying I can't do it. I love to. I just order Mexican food or go out to eat at a Mexican restaurant. I don't. Or there's actually in New York we have Puerto Rican restaurants, Dominican restaurants. We have all kinds of Latino, particularly Peruvian chicken, rotisserie chicken restaurants. You come across a fair amount in New York, or at least you did before we were all shut down because people are losing their minds again. But yeah, I want people should support, if they're willing, support the Freedom Hut, obviously, by going to our sponsors when you hear me talking about that on the show, but also, and by the way, that's one instance where every single thing you do, every time you go to a site and buy a product and use code BUCK, for example, or go to a site that's set up with /BUCK, it's like a vote. You're clicking the keep Buck on the air. But Goya beans too. I'll have to check this out. I think my favorite thing is I love the mole sauce, but from what I understand, that's like a recipe that's usually passed down from generation to generation and takes like a ton of ingredients, and you have to let it simmer for like 48 hours at least, more like 4 months. I don't know. Like that's what I've heard about mole sauce. It's very complicated.
I'm more of a canned sauce kind of guy.
Sauces is where the chef separates himself from the masses. I'm just going to say it. Sauces is really, because it's so easy to mess up your sauce, and the sauce is the first flavor profile you really get from a dish when you eat it. So I'm just saying, man.
But if I can buy a jar of Taco Bell sauce, why am I going to make my own?
Yeah, it is convenient. Who gets credit for their COVID response as a politician, and who gets berated by the media? You'd think that it would be based upon the stats, the numbers, because we have very clear understanding of which places have been hit the worst by this and where there have been the greatest challenges. Let me remind you, I'm going to talk about China in just a few minutes. I know I'd mentioned that before. We'll do a deep dive onto China and what's going on there. China! That's my two favorite Trump words to say are China and probably. He always say, I've never heard anyone else say it like that. Probably. I know you think, Buck, that's not. No, he does. Listen to it. He always says that word that way. Anyway, so Cuomo is out there. Before I get to Cuomo, actually, CNN is bashing Trump, saying that Anderson Cooper. Does anyone? I don't know why. I guess people are in a habit and they think Anderson Cooper is something special for reasons that are completely. I don't know why they think that Anderson Cooper is so good at his job or whatever they think. So good at what exactly? Reading off a prompter? 1 million people can do that job. And 1 million people do that job. But anyway, here he is talking about Trump in the victory lap. Play 7.
More than 136,000 of our brothers and sisters, our moms and dads, grandparents and friends are dead. The president did briefly mention them, but only to boast about how many more people would have died had it not been for his actions. He calls it leadership, but to call it that would be misleading. The largest single peacetime loss of life in this country since the 1918 influenza pandemic, and no end in sight. And today the president was taking another victory lap, yet again. The graves are still fresh, but this president ignores them.
Oh, yeah, the president ignores the graves, Anderson. That's, wow. The president is waking up every day, dealing with this all day, all the time, and has been the subject of journos trying to undermine, attack, and just, slow down the president and his response. I mean, he spends so much time just fending off the lunatic left-wing, attacks on his ability to handle this. And it's never enough. Is he supposed to go on TV every day and just be solemn and say that we're losing this battle against COVID-19? I've done a terrible job. Let's put Joe Biden in charge. Unless he said that, you could always do this while the graves are still fresh. While the graves are still fresh. We all are aware of this. It's a terrible situation with COVID-19. It has been for months. It is taking lives. It's ruining businesses. And it comes from China. We don't talk about that as much these days, but this could have been avoided if the Chinese government was not so concerned, first and foremost, with maintaining its iron and illegitimate grip on power in that country. But to say that the president is not paying attention or doesn't care about the bodies is just a reckless slander. It really is. But that's what they'll continue to say. I mean, I talked to the president about this issue. He was grave and solemn when I was speaking about it in the Oval Office. He's like, this has been a horrible situation. We're doing the best we can. We're fighting through it. We're going to get through it. Do we want a president who's an optimist while we're in this battle, while we're fighting this war against a virus? Or do you want a president who is just constantly telling us that we're screwed no matter what, the end is near, we're all going to die, and until Joe Biden's in charge, everything's going to be terrible? Joe Biden's a moron, all right? The libs can play these games all day about how much they don't like Trump, and he's so awful, and he's so evil. Their alternative to Trump's leadership is laughable. Laughable. If they had put up a serious candidate, when I say serious, I don't mean has a serious shot of winning. I think Joe Biden unfortunately does. I mean a serious human being. A person that anybody should listen to about any. Joe Biden doesn't know squat about squat. But there's still all the sanctimony. There's still all of the pretense that the real problem here is Trump. I go back to, this reminds me of when I was on the Bill Maher show right before the pandemic. And I was asking the panel, which I should not have asked. It's like dealing with a swarm of bees when you got four people around, blah, 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 Trump is horrible, blah, 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 blah. And they can curse and ha-ha. And it's all funny when they're cursing about this stuff. And you're sitting there like trying to have a real conversation. It's not an easy deal. Trust me. But I kept asking, what do you want him to do differently? And they're take it seriously. He's taking it seriously. It's a stupid thing to say. Well, what do you want him to do? Wear a mask? Oh, if Trump wears a mask, then the whole thing goes away. I mean, these are unserious points they make because they hate Trump. They hate the Republican Party and his leadership. And they're just pretending that this is really about failures of policy and decision making at the highest levels of the government that would have been better if a Democrat were in charge. No matter who the president was, here's the reality. No matter who the president of the United States was, we were going to be put through hell with this. The question that we do face is it going to be longer and is it going to be worse? But it was always going to be hell. And I think the lockdown libs are certainly making this whole thing, they're dragging this out, making it longer and more costly than it should be. But that's the central fight that we're going through right now. Cuomo, the fact that he has the support he does, the numbers he does, is just stunning. Play clip 8. I'm sorry, no, not 8. Play. Oh, no, this is CNN. I'm sorry. I get a Brothers Cuomo. This is the thing. I get the Brothers Cuomo confused. Hey, here's Bro Cuomo over at CNN. Hey, play clip 6.
He keeps saying the only reason we have cases is because we're testing. Like, that's a bad thing, that the testing is the problem. Yeah. As I said earlier on the show, it's like, hey, Don, I just figured out the cure to cancer. Let's stop counting the cases. Yeah. That's what he's recommending. And all that lets you know is, unless literally he is diseased of the mind, like COVID has taken his IQ away, He's only saying this because he wants you to mitigate the relevance of the pandemic. Yeah. Because he wants it to go away so the economy can come back faster. What he doesn't seem to get is if you don't deal with the reality of the pandemic, you won't get the economy back. That's why 27 states are having to step backward.
Oh, my God. Deal with the reality of the pandemic. How? What are we going to do? We're going to, just when there's more cases. And this whole thing that he says, no testing means you've dealt with it. That's not what he's saying. There's clearly a rise in cases with a rise in testing when a disease has spread through the whole community. The issue is not cases. The issue is hospitalizations, serious illness, and death. Those are the factors we have to, and there are some hospitals where there are a lot of COVID patients right now. Houston has a lot. There's some hospitals in Florida that have a lot. None of them have been overwhelmed. And I just read you the most recent death rate. It's in the 300s. That death rate is a fraction of what it was at the peak. And we've had states that have been in reopen for months. So what is the lesson that we take from this? Well, the lesson the libs take from this is that we should lock down again until, I don't know, how long should we really lock down again? Until, November sounds about right. It's going to be safe in November to start to live life again, or maybe not till January of 2021 when Joe Biden, they think, will be president.